Alright guys, so this is going to be just a quick deck tech. A look at the Simic Aggro deck that I've been talking about this week. Do forgive me, I am a bit under the weather, so I'm just trying my best to stick with it and get this out for the week. Sorry, see, I'm choking already. So my original start for this deck, I wanted to kind of pull these two creatures. You get the Blastoderm and the Centaur here, and pull those out from the red-green aggro burn deck that has been showing decently in recent weeks, and just the power behind these. There's a lot of shroud creatures out there, but this one comes in at a 5/5 for 4, and that's really hard to deal with. And this one, because it has flanking, makes it even more powerful when it comes to like double blocking and stuff like that. So I really wanted to kind of play around with these guys. I also wanted to bring in a bit of the land package. Now the tournament red-green deck runs Llanowar Elves and Civic Wayfinder to kind of ramp mana and get this stuff into play fast. Kind of my makeshift elves here, I brought in Coiling Oracle. It does give you an opportunity for land draw, as well as just additional card draw. So then I also have Civic Wayfinder, but I did cut it back to 3. I felt I was getting really kind of land swamped in this deck, so I did cut that back. I wanted to keep kind of a flying theme in here as well. Anyone following me knows that I have this kind of unhealthy obsession with the Stormbound Geist, which I brought in. There's a lot of flyers in the format, and I really like the creature. He can only block flyers, but he's still great. So I wanted to bring in 3 of them, and again keep with the flying. I brought in 2 copies of Stitched Drake. I think any more than that is a little difficult to handle, but 2 is great. The oracles die off and perform great, a great service in doing so by letting you get this Drake into play. I also brought in 2 copies of the Assault Zeppelin. This is kind of a fun creature. It's 4-costed 3/3 that has flying and trample. Definitely something troublesome to deal with. Of the flyers that you find in this format, very few of them can handle 3 power, and more importantly that it has trample. So when you do find one that is trying to chump block it, it's going to still have the opponent take damage anyways. So then I also brought in similar cards from the other version, but perhaps a different ratio. I kept with 3 copies of Serrated Arrows. There's not a lot of creature control when it comes to green and blue, so as soon as something gets onto the field, it's a bit troublesome. But Serrated Arrows helps you kind of take care of that. And is really kind of a lot of fun when you can get those combat tricks and whatnot out of it. Another option for creature control when they hit the board is Vapor Snag. Really like this card. Bounce a creature, and your opponent loses 1 life. So it adds like a bit of a burn element to it. It handles tokens really well. But one of the things blue really shines at is through countering before they hit the field. Now I went with Mana Leak and Rune Snag. Because they are only 1 blue in their cost. You know what? I may disagree with this now that I've played this deck. I had originally thought that finding a double blue was hard, but you do get, with the Wayfinder, Evolving Wilds, Coiling Oracle, you do get a lot of opportunities to do that. It becomes more troublesome when you're getting a whole bunch of these 2 blue costed flyers. And making a play on one of these, as well as having 2 blue mana open for a full counterspell, is not always something that's going to work out well. But you can feel free to make some changes with this deck. Perhaps Rune Snag is something that I do find myself loving a bit more than I should. Kind of like the Stormbound Geist, but that's just personal preference. There's a lot of things you could do. You could up your count to 4 Mana Leaks. Take out the Rune Snags and then bring in 3 Prohibit, or if you play this deck and you decide that hey, it can hold up anyways, you could bring in the counter spells and not worry too hard about that. I also switched up the mana base a little. The deck has 4 Evolving Wilds to kind of fetch stuff out. I felt that was a good addition to find the missing color for a Coiling Oracle, or to help with some of these double colored casting costs, and getting those into play. Also brought in a single copy of each of the cycling lands for these colors. I liked them. I felt it was a little bit of a draw option. You do occasionally run into issues with that. So let's take a look. I made kind of a makeshift sideboard. This deck wasn't intended to really play sideboard wise, but if you do want to play matches, then maybe these are some choices you can bring in. Of course, 4 copies of Thermokarst. I did originally, and I think one of these videos has it, me talking about Spreading Seas, and I did originally have that in. You need some kind of land destruction or control spell to deal with the post lands, and Spreading Seas is just not quite it. It's nice if you're mono blue and you have no other options. It does draw you a card, but when it really comes down to it is if you're playing something like Is It Post or Dimir Post, they do get the opportunity to capsize the land that it is enchanting and getting that back. So something a little bit of a harder kill would be Thermokarst. Get that off real fast. Echoing Truth has to be brought in for Storm. It's kind of the same thing as Echoing Decay. If you land that on your opponent after he has finished storming off Empty the Warrens, then it's good game in your favor. So you have to definitely have that. Nature's Claim is definitely in there for artifact decks. You do run into a lot of affinity even in the more casual room, so definitely want to run that. Sandstorm, another good option for facing down Storm. Perhaps my sideboard here is a bit too focused on beating Storm between these, but it's definitely a very prevalent matchup these days. And again, doing 1 damage to each creature is going to kill off the Goblin Storm. Hydroblast is good for the Isn't matchup. It's good for red deck wins or goblins. It works well with that. But I did, in all my articles, I do talk about options for rearranging a deck. As I said there, there's a lot of times where people will see a deck, and when it comes to casual, you're building a deck that is fun for you to play. Other people may not consider it fun. So there are elements to this that I find fun that others may not. I talked about Runesnag and Stormbound Geist, so I like to give people some options if they're stuck or looking for ideas to change up a deck. And there were kind of 2 ways to go with this. The first one I talked about was staying with blue. If you do that, I already talked about changing up the counter spells. You could bring in an additional Vapor Snag. You can get rid of these Stormbound Geists and bring in an additional card draw in Muldrifter. It's a bit heavier costed, but something that is fairly playable in this deck. And kind of the other option is to just get rid of blue entirely, and that does turn it into an option between red, white, and black. Now I wanted to stay away from red because there's already a tournament deck, very successful, and I don't like to net deck that stuff. I don't want to just be copying it. I want to take especially in casual, I want to be building something that is not something people see every day. So between white and black, then I think black is your better answer because it does bring you some kill spells. A lot of times the burn spells in the matchup, the red-green matchup, are there for killing creatures so that you can attack freely with Blastoderm. Excuse me. So bringing kill spells is very easy for black to do. Things like Echoing Decay is, like I said, a must. I would even put it main deck for facing Storm and stuff like that. Doomblade, you get a lot of options. Snuff Out, all kinds of stuff in black for killing off creatures. And then you also, I would bring in, stuff like Chittering Rats. You're going to replace, oracles and these flyers. The Zeppelin, you can bring in stuff like Chittering Rats. Liliana's Spectre to really deal with, flyers if you want to do that, and kind of bring in the hand control aspect that black is well known for. Excuse me. And I would also, alongside that, bring in probably 2 copies of Undying Evil. Undying Evil onto Chittering Rats is pretty awesome in my opinion, and definitely can hose up your opponent pretty well. Another thing that this deck kind of misses from, the tournament level red-green deck is the Retrace ability. that allows you to replay a spell from your graveyard by discarding a land. You do occasionally run into mana flood in the mid game, and you kind of wish that you had that. So by going to black instead of running the burn retrace, you could bring in Raven's Crime, which would just reinforce that the card discard, the hand discard. Sorry, like I said, feeling under the weather. The hand discard that black is really known for, and kind of bring in that control aspect to the deck. So there you go, that's a look at this deck. Hope you check out the article. And I will check you guys next time.